What's going on YouTube? It's Tej back again with another video, and today I'm giving you a little bit of a different video. We're back to the Google Docs. If you missed my pre-draft process, position rankings, we were in Google Docs for that. But today I want to break down most important offseason move, and important can be kind of interpreted in a few different ways. Maybe most impactful, who I think brings the most positive change, or maybe even negative change, depending on who we're talking about, or maybe the decision that will bear the biggest consequences, both positive or negative. We'll talk about coaches, we'll talk about players. When I talk about coaches, head coach, defensive, offensive coordinators, the whole thing. Every move that could be analyzed, I took it in consideration, and I put down who I thought the most important offseason move for each and every NFL team is. And also, you'll see honorable mention here. A lot of these guys are QBs, which makes sense. Like, spoiler, it's Trevor Lawrence for the Jags. And then, it's kind of cheap to be like, QB. Obviously, it's the most important position. So, honorable mention will have it filled for not every team, but mostly teams that I had a QB here in the most important addition. And then also, one other exception to that. And let me hear it down in the comment section. Tell me who your favorite team is and their most important addition, move, re-signing, whatever you want it to make it about. Player, coach, coordinator, I don't care. Just tell me who it is and give me your case. This is a fun time of the year to be an NFL fan. June, everybody's positive. Everybody has reason for hope, for the most part. Sorry, Texans fans. But everybody has reasons to be optimistic and things to look forward to next season. And this is kind of a video to highlight what I think those reasons should be, but I want to hear your reasons down in the comment section. Also, if you enjoyed today's video, please hit that like button. It would help me out a ton. And if you're new to the channel with more sports content in your life, please consider subscribing. Without further ado, let's get into it. You're gonna kind of see it given away here when I highlight the names. But for the Arizona Cardinals, we're doing this in alphabetical order, by the way, based off team location. So Arizona goes first. J.J. Watt, to me, was the ultimate difference. Really kind of thought about maybe making an argument for Tay Gowan here, probably in the honorable mention side. But J.J. Watt, a proven NFL veteran, still a high-level pass rusher for a team that has an explosive offense. We'll see how Cliff Kingsbury, if he can maximize the talent on that side of the football. And additionally, you can win a lot of games by having a good offense and getting timely takeaways and sacks. And J.J. Watt will definitely help in the sacks and maybe even the takeaways. He'll create some takeaways for your secondary by applying that pressure. So, and he's a proven leader, right? Like, this is a guy who is a great locker room presence. And, first-time head coach at Cliff Kingsbury. He's going into year 3, but it definitely helps to have those type of dudes in the locker room. So for me, it's J.J. Watt. Again, maybe I could have made the argument Tay Gowan. Has an opportunity to have a path onto the field, compete for a starting spot, and I'm also a big Tay Gowan fan. So J.J. Watt for the Arizona Cardinals. And then for the Atlanta Falcons, definitely Kyle Pitts, especially considering it is almost certain now that Julio Jones is being traded. Also, I'm recording this prior to any Aaron Rodgers or Julio Jones trade, and if it happens in the middle of the video, I'll shuffle around and make the appropriate adjustment. But Kyle Pitts is going to fill in for the production you lose with Julio Jones heading out here in the next coming days or so, we assume. But he can be your X wide receiver. He could be an inline tight end. He could play in the slot. He's just a dynamic offensive weapon that you can do a ton of different things. And I'm excited. You have a creative offensive mind in Arthur Smith, and then just ultimate dominant chess piece in Kyle Pitts. Arthur Smith probably should go in this honorable mention category now that I think about it, but I want to see how he uses Pitts and how he can try to maximize the potential that Pitts possesses, because he's not just a tight end, he's not just a wide receiver. He can play in the slot, outside, tight at the inline spot. Everything I just said. It's not really something we've ever seen before. So to me, it's definitely Kyle Pitts. Then we get to the Buffalo Bills. And it's tough. I could have said, re-signing Darrell Williams, Matt Milano, something along those lines. But to me, Emmanuel Sanders provides something that this team didn't really have a whole lot of other than Stephon Diggs. And that's somebody who can win a lot in that 10 to 19 yard, over the middle of the field, that range. That Stephon Diggs is fantastic at. Diggs is really just great at everything. But Sanders gives you another weapon and another option to do something like that. He's also still a good field stretcher. And I think Gabe Davis and Sanders can kind of make up for what they lost with John Brown departing. Also, Brown when he was on the field, he was a big part of the offense, and he opened up a lot of success for Diggs underneath and in the middle parts of the field. So that is a big loss, but he was also hurt a lot. So they have some experience playing without John Brown. Obviously, the stats show that they were better with him on the field versus without. But I think Sanders, despite his injury concerns, second year for Gabe Davis, a full offseason, those two can team up and try to make up for the lost downfield production. But I also think Sanders still knows how to get open at a high level and can make a lot of big impacts over the middle of the field. Then we get to the Baltimore Ravens. It's got to be Rashad Bateman, right? Like, Odafe Owe, future edge one potentially for them. Kevin Zeitler, I think, is a Pro Bowl level guard right away, especially in that power run scheme. I have a hard time thinking he won't make the Pro Bowl. But you needed a big body guy with a big catch radius to try to make the game easier for Lamar Jackson. That's something that you're going to hear me say a lot throughout this video when we talk about these wide receivers. Make the game easier for your quarterback. And I mean, Emmanuel Sanders, you're trying to make it easier for Josh Allen over the middle of the field, that 10 to 19 yard range. And Rashad Bateman, everything. I mean, honestly, if he can help you win outside the numbers, catches on the sideline, you love to see it. If he can help Mark Andrews be productive over the middle of the field, you'll love to see it. And again, the big catch radius. So, obviously the concerns with Lamar Jackson is his accuracy. And I'm not saying he's a running back at the QB spot. I am not one of those people, but accuracy is his one flaw. And that's what keeps him from being like the best quarterback in the league. If he was Mahomes-like with his touch and downfield ball and just accuracy in general, with his athleticism, I don't necessarily think it'd be a competition for who the number one QB is. And that's crazy to say, considering we have Patrick Mahomes playing, and he's not even 25 years old. But Bateman helps Lamar Jackson in a lot of different ways, boosts up a wide receiver core that desperately needed to be improved. And actually, the Ravens did a fantastic job. Sammy Watkins, 1-year deal, but Bateman, Tylan Wallace, I'm pretty sure they're out on Julio Jones, but who knows, something crazy could go happen there. But Bateman, Wallace, Sammy Watkins, they all help. Bateman, to me, the most impactful, however. So then we get to the Carolina Panthers. And this is one where originally I had J.C. Horn as the most important addition, right? They needed a number one corner. If they're going to be taken seriously and they want to be contenders, not just this year, but moving forward, right? I don't think this team is ready to compete, and they might make a wild card run. Maybe they win a couple games early, they get into the picture, but then I think they're going to peter off by the end of the season, be outside that playoff picture. But next year, the year after, J.C. Horn's the type of guy you need. You need that guy who can go up to the line of scrimmage, press the living crap out of somebody and prevent them from getting off the line clean, and it ends up in a sack or whatever because the QB doesn't have his first read open on a 3rd and 6 in the fourth quarter. You get the ball back, and ideally it's maybe Sam Darnold leading you down the field for a game-winning drive. It's just a hypothetical situation, but that's the difference J.C. Horn can make. And every team, if they want to be a plus level playoff team, they need at least a B-plus level cornerback, and I think J.C. Horn can easily be that. But I thought about it. Most important move has to be Sam Darnold. And this is one of those examples where I talked about the pendulum could swing in other ways. And this is one where, like I said at the beginning, the pendulum could swing in either direction. If Darnold's good, it looks like a fantastic addition. You got him for a couple mid-round picks, a future second, and that's totally worthwhile. But if he's not good and he's same old Sam Darnold, despite having an improved, core around him and a better coaching staff, especially from the offensive side, well then, that's a really big disappointment. This team is hunting for a QB next offseason, and they'll be paying Sam Darnold the 5th-year option and a ton of money. So based off, the wording, most important offseason move, it has to be Darnold. It's the most important position in football. But in a lot of ways, I really do think J.C. Horn has a ton of impact for this team as a contender now, potentially, but especially moving forward. And that takes us to the Cincinnati Bengals. Again, the most important move, another first-round pick, Jamar Chase. And to me, it was Chase over someone like maybe Trey Hendrickson replacing Carl Lawson, or Mike Hilton here was my honorable mention. This is like the one exception. It's not a QB here in the addition. Instead, it's a wide receiver, and then Hilton's the honorable mention. I like what Hilton can do on the defensive side. We'll talk about him first, especially blitzing. This is a team that doesn't have an abundance of pass rush talent on the front four. You're hoping Trey Hendrickson's that guy, but Mike Hilton can help you manufacture pressure against opposing QBs, and he's just fantastic. Led the team in interceptions last year in Pittsburgh, so big Mike Hilton guy, and they got him at a great value, $6 million a year for potentially the best slot corner in football, one of the top 3. That's a steal. But Jamar Chase, to me, the reason I put him here is it gave Cincinnati something that's elite, right? It completes that wide receiver room where Higgins on the outside with Tyler Boyd, one of the best slot wide receivers in the NFL, and then Auden Tate, your 4. Shut up. There's just not many teams that are going to be able to keep up with that, both in their wide receiver room, but also opposing defense are going to have a hard time trying to slow down that much talent on top of Joe Burrow being the quarterback. And you have Joe Mixon, and you have Chris Evans, who I think is going to be a nice, solid backup running back of the future for Cincinnati. I mean, that's an offense that's headaches to try to account for all those different weapons. So the idea of taking something for Cincy and making it elite like that wide receiver core now is, to me, that made Jamar Chase the most important and impactful offseason move, with Mike Hilton being an honorable mention. I'm hitting all the wrong things here. As we move on to the Cleveland Browns, Greg Newsome, a lot of the same things I could say about Chase. To me, you draft Newsome, and now you have a nasty 1-2 cornerback duo. Denzel Ward, we know he's a superstar. Like, he's already one of the better corners in football. You like the upside for Greedy Williams, but he has just proven he cannot stay on the field, at least early on in his career. And we'd love to be proven wrong. Absolutely. Greg Newsome comes with some injury concerns as well, but at this point, he's starting with a clean slate, rookie in the NFL. And it's tough. Corners don't always make an immediate impact, but I think Newsome could be an exception to that. I think in a lot of ways, he might be the first-round rookie corner that makes the biggest impact right away. Him or Surtain, because Surtain is just so polished, so clean. It's tough to say it's not him, but Newsome in a lot of ways can be described in a similar fashion. And here he's playing CB2, just like Surtain, where you're not asking to be number one. So I think that helps a ton, not like Okudah last year in Detroit, where he's getting the toughest assignment. But this gives a nasty 1-2 cornerback duo. Then you have Troy Hill in the slot, Greedy Williams, you hope is healthy and you can mix him in, get him some snaps. And then you have John Johnson III, Grant Delpit, Ronnie Harrison Jr. Newsome was a huge addition to really complete that secondary. And this is a team that has Myles Garrett, added to the pass rush with the likes of Takk McKinley, Jadeveon Clowney. I think they probably end up bringing Sheldon Richardson back just at a cheaper figure. And then the offense is already good, and Kevin Stefanski is going to make sure they put up points. So Newsome ensures. And, I'll talk about this a little bit more. Look at the Green Bay Packers. They have two awesome safeties. I've been saying a lot in my videos lately. Adrian Amos, Darnell Savage, one of the best safety tandems in the league. And Jair Alexander's a top 3 corner in football. But you see Kevin King continuously picked on. That number 2 corner spot is as important as it gets, especially now with so many creative offensive minds. They know how to find the weakest link, and they will attack it relentlessly. So with Greg Newsome, you hope he's healthy. Same thing could be said about Greedy Williams, but with the addition of Greg Newsome, I think you raise your floor and you take away any potential weak link that could be attacked in the secondary for Cleveland. And this is a team that is poised to potentially compete for a Super Bowl. On to the Chicago Bears. Obviously, the most important addition is Justin Fields. Thought about making a meme here and saying it's Andy Dalton, but it's Justin Fields. All jokes aside, this is your hopeful QB of the future, a guy you just haven't really had in your franchise history, maybe at least in the modern era. I mean, it's been a long time coming. And then the other one, the honorable mention, tagging Allen Robinson, especially in hindsight, right? I remember when they tagged Allen Robinson, I was super irritated because I was tired of bums throwing the football to Allen Robinson. And it might continue to be the case the first couple of weeks of the season. But once we get that Fields to Robinson, Fields to Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet and everybody else in that offensive repertoire, and Matt Nagy, I think, is a solid coach. I definitely think it's more Ryan Pace who's on the hot seat versus Matt Nagy, but the two are obviously linked. Regardless, I think this duo, Fields to Robinson, could be lethal once we get them both on the field at the same time for Chicago. So most important addition has to be Justin Fields. You gave up the draft capital, you moved up, you get your guy, a guy you just have not been able to find, especially considering Mitchell Trubisky was just a failed experiment. I don't even know if it was an experiment really, but a failed plan of action. And then honorable mention it, tagging Allen Robinson. I'm a big believer in, if you're going to have a rookie quarterback, you got to have a stud wide receiver to help make the game easier for him. And Allen Robinson's definitely that. For the Dallas Cowboys, could have gone in a few different directions here. I mean, in addition, you could say Dak being healthy. That would be a big addition, no doubt, but that's kind of a given. He was going to come back and be healthy. Re-signing him, you could make that argument. But Dan Quinn, to me, at the minimum, if he can simplify the defense and get rid of all the broken coverages and big plays that defense allowed last year, they go from bottom 3 defense to bottom 10. And that's a slight improvement. And with how good that offense is going to be, year 2 with, that offense, I mean, I guess it's really year 3 with Kellen Moore, but year 2 under Mike McCarthy and, his system relying with Kellen Moore, and obviously Dak Prescott's healthy, another year of playing experience for CeeDee Lamb, all those things. You hope the offensive line's healthy as well. That offense is going to put up points. And if this defense can creep towards, middle of the pack, they're going to win a lot of football games because that offense is going to be enough to buoy this team up. They just need the defense to not lose a bunch of games. And I think Dan Quinn will at least make it to you're not giving up big, busted coverage touchdowns, and instead teams are earning it. I think there's going to be a lot of touchdowns given up. Don't get me wrong. I think teams are going to earn a lot of scores against them because I'm kind of worried about the talent on that side of the football. They need another edge. I mean, Randy Gregory, a lot of Cowboys fans seem to really like him, but I'm not convinced, at least not yet. Big question marks at the linebacking core. They have so many guys, I don't know what they're doing. They could use another safety. Trevon Diggs, to me, is a CB2 instead of a CB1. But nonetheless, if Dan Quinn can just make it simple, I mean, that cover 3 defense helps hide weaknesses in the cornerback group too as well, so that could help Dallas. But just having organization and avoiding chaos will go a long way for this Dallas Cowboys team as they look to make it back into the playoffs. On to the Denver Broncos. Could have made it Patrick Surtain, but Kyle Fuller is going to be CB1 in my opinion. Eventually it will be Surtain, and I think, maybe honorable mention here to Surtain. Bolster up that cornerback group, and you're in a division where you're facing Justin Herbert twice a year. You're facing Patrick Mahomes twice a year. Even Derek Carr twice a season. Like, you got to load up in the secondary. And I wasn't crazy about the Surtain pick at 9, but I understand the thinking. And if you have Kyle Fuller as your cornerback 1 and a guy who's still playing at a high level despite being into his 30s, and then you have Patrick Surtain at CB2, whew, I mean, that's lethal. I mean, that is nasty. And then Bryce Callahan, and you mix in Michael Ojemudia. You also paid Ronald Darby $10 million a year, so you should try to force him onto the field the best you can. We'll see about that. But overall, really love the addition for Kyle Fuller. It's only a 1-year deal, but I think this is one that pays dividends big time this upcoming season, especially if they get Aaron Rodgers, because then they have the pass rush. You're not worried about the secondary by any means. Maybe you're worried about the inside linebackers, but that's manageable. You can live with it. You can work around that. On to the Detroit Lions. I am steadfast in this take. I love the hire of Aaron Glenn as their defensive coordinator. Former cornerback in the NFL, was working with the New Orleans Saints from 2016 up until last year as their DBs coach. And think about the guys he's worked with. Marshawn Lattimore, Marcus Williams. He helped rejuvenate Janoris Jenkins, Eli Apple, same thing. Like, he has a way of working with DBs as he was one, and he has proven to be a good coach in that area. And I look at a Lions team with Jeff Okudah looking to bounce back after a disappointing rookie season, though it's not all his fault. You can't expect a corner to come right off the rip and defend number ones, especially in a division where you're facing Devontae Adams twice a year, Adam Thielen / Justin Jefferson twice a season, Allen Robinson. I mean, like, that's 6-year games, and those are 3/4 of the guys you're having to face. What more could you realistically ask of him? So I think he helps Jeff Okudah a bunch. I think he could help Amani Uruwariye, Tracy Walker, Will Harris, a bunch of the guys there in the room. Also, Afatu Melifonwu they took, and I got a great value there, just outside the top 100. I mean, fantastic value to get a guy who has the making of a number 1 corner, just needs to have a different mindset. And I think Aaron Glenn could help improve upon his thinking of not wanting to get beat, so he gives up a bunch underneath. Aaron Glenn's going to give him that feel and that touch, and he's going to coach him up. And I think Fetu Melifonwu will look back, and he'll be an absolute steal in this draft class. So I'm all about Aaron Glenn as the hiring as the defensive coordinator. And it's going to take some time with this Lions team. But I think Dan Campbell changing the culture, Aaron Glenn, and then Anthony Lynn with the defense and the offense respectively, those are the coordinators you want to lean on and rely on as you begin this rebuilding process. On to the Green Bay Packers. This was a really tough one. I didn't want to make it so many defensive coordinators here, and we're going to go DC here for the Houston Texans. So Joe Barry gets the honorable mention. I do think he will simplify the game, and honestly, in a lot of ways, I think that defense fits Jair Alexander better. Soft, off-zone coverage, and again, it makes me really wish they took Asante Samuel at the end of round 1, but instead they go Eric Stokes, who super good athlete, great frame, played a lot of man up on the line of scrimmage at Georgia, so it's going to be a little bit of a transition, but maybe a change in the scheme from Joe Barry allows Josh Jackson to step up. He was drafted in the same class as Jair Alexander, and somebody who I think better fits in a more zone-heavy defense. So we'll see. Preseason will tell a lot, but also mini camps, training camp, OTA, all that stuff that coaches are obviously paying attention to. That'll prove to be, a good indicator on where Jackson is in the eyes of Barry, as well as LaFleur and the entire Packers organization. But this duo here, Green Bay has got to find a number 2 corner. Because like I said earlier, Kevin King has been picked on time and time again, and it's cost Green Bay big games, including the NFC Championship game against Tampa Bay. I mean, you go back to that touchdown he allows at the end of the first half, and that was obviously 7 points worth of production for Tampa Bay and a huge pendulum swing and momentum right before the break. I mean, I don't know. That play still stands out, and I can't believe Kevin King allowed that to happen. But it's also on DC Mike Penton. leaving him out to dry in some ways. I wasn't crazy about the play call either, and that's where Joe Barry hopefully comes in. And again, kind of like what we talked about with Dan Quinn, just organization, clean it up. It sometimes takes a new voice also to rally the troops of sorts there on the defensive side of the football, and hopefully Joe Barry can do that if you're a Packers fan. Another defensive coordinator here for the Houston Texans. This was obviously a tough one. You could say Davis Mills. You could say Nico Collins. Thought about that as well, as they could use a big body wide receiver opposite of Brandon Cooks. Which, speaking of Brandon Cooks, you know what's funny? This guy asked to not be traded because he was tired of it, but I bet you he has to wish he could take that back. One, Houston would love to trade him and try to get any sort of value because they're rebuilding, but like now Brandon Cooks is like the only plus level NFL player on the offense. Him and Laramie Tunsil. Yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna lock it into. I think that I'm comfortable locking. And then they have some decent running backs, but that's about it for the offensive side of the football. That's tough. And I mean, I say that plus level. I'm not saying average. Tyrod Taylor's a league player. He plays in the NFL, and he's a good enough bridge quarterback. Titus Howard, we'll see, but Tunsil and Brandon Cooks are about it when it comes to like above average players. And I bet Brandon Cooks was wishing he didn't ask to not be traded. Regardless, let's talk about Lovie Smith here. A guy with a proven track record, both at the NFL and now the college level, where he's coming from, as he now is the DC in Houston. But also, you bring in David Culley, first-time head coach, coming from a great organization also in Baltimore. So you like that. Same thing kind of with Dan Campbell, where it's just like a culture shift. You're trying to just shift the mindset of the players in the locker room. And then Lovie Smith has been a head coach. And this kind of gives me vibes of when the Rams hired Sean McVay. Obviously a little different from the situation. McVay, offensive guru, super young. He's the youngest head coach in NFL history. Then he goes out there and he hires Wade Phillips to be his defensive coordinator. But Phillips was much more than just the guy who was responsible for the defense. He took on a mentorship role for McVay. How do you be a head coach? And I think Lovie Smith could help Coach Culley kind of get those steps and take him along with that journey. So to kind of sum it up on Lovie Smith, hopefully he can be a plus level defensive mind still. I think he is. Help keep the Texans competitive and also help Coach Culley, get the walk. What is it like to be an NFL head coach? How do you get the most out of your team? And, all of those finer details that we don't always see. On to the Indianapolis Colts. Obviously, Carson Wentz is the most important. Kind of like what we talked about with Sam Darnold. The pendulum could swing in either direction. If he is a disaster and it doesn't work out, failed experiment, well, then you're blowing it up. And you might blow up the entire roster, honestly. Like, I know you just got DeForest Buckner, and I know Darius Leonard's young, but you might be just trying to go full reset, But if it works, this is a playoff caliber team. I think they need to be in on Julio Jones. It sounds like they're not. Mind-boggling to me. We'll see how Wentz works with those weapons. Frank Reich obviously is a great offensive mind. Hopefully he can draw some people open, kind of like what Shanahan does. I think Pittman takes a step up in year 2. If Paris Campbell can stay healthy, if T.Y. Hilton can, continue to be productive into his mid-30s now, then all right, there's an argument to be made. There's enough talent, but I think you're relying on too many ifs. But, obviously Carson Wentz is a big factor here. And then honorable mention to Kwity Paye, right? Like, this is a team that desperately needed some edge rush. Like, you have the DeForest Buckner, who's a game wrecker on the interior. You needed someone who could do something, not quite going to be DeForest Buckner on the outside, but if Kwity Paye could be an 8 to 10 sack type of guy at that defensive end spot, it takes that defense another step forward. And it's already a good defense, but edge rush was the one thing they were missing. Kwity Paye provides it. And then on the offense, they have a lot of weapons in regards to a great offensive line. Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines, Marlon Mack's coming back for cheap, a great head coach. I think they can get better at wide receiver, but Carson Wentz, the quarterback position was the biggest need to fill, and Wentz is the body they found, and we'll see if Reich and Wentz can figure it out and rekindle some of that 2017 magic they had in Philly. On to the Kansas City Chiefs. Thought about Joe Thuney here. Probably should have made him an honorable mention, but made it Orlando Brown Jr. He's a little bit younger. Also, position value, right? Left guard versus left tackle. The two of them together, though, that blind side for Pat Mahomes, he better not face any sort of pressure to his backside, because that is unbelievable. That's a super talented tandem between Brown Jr. and Thuney. But also because you give up assets, so it feels like there's more riding on this as opposed to a free agency signing. You're forking up cash, obviously, but Brown, you had the swap from the first. Then you get an extra second-round pick, so you're moving down a couple of, more than a handful of picks, but you're moving down in the draft, that's all I'm trying to say. And then also a couple of mid-round options. And now you're going to have to pay Orlando Brown, so he has the money and the draft asset component to him, so he got the slight edge over Thuney, but both those guys are going to be Obviously, huge additions, trying to keep Patrick Mahomes healthy and avoid him from scrambling for his life like he was in the Super Bowl. And another left tackle here for the LA Chargers, Rashawn Slater. And a lot of the things I said about Orlando Bruin, trying to protect your franchise QB, your big-time investment. The Chiefs are paying Pat Mahomes. The Chargers aren't. And you can make an argument that's even more important. You need to have him on the field. The template for a lot of these teams has been you need to win with a QB on his rookie contract. That's been something you hear all the time. And protection for Justin Herbert is how you keep him on the field. If he gets hurt, you're not maximizing the value of that rookie contract, and you're not maximizing the value and the talent on your team. So Slater goes a long way. He's your blindside protector and an absolute fantastic value. 13th pick in the draft. I don't know how he falls that far, but the Chargers had to have been throwing an absolute rager in the draft room once he fell into their laps. On to the LA Rams, quarterback Matt Stafford. And it's one of those things where a marginal upgrade at certain positions is good, and a marginal upgrade at other positions is the difference, right? Like you go from, this is not quite to this level, but you go from Jameis Winston, guy threw for 5,000 yards, 30 touchdowns. We'll talk about Winston later. But you go from Jameis Winston to Tom Brady and you win a Super Bowl. Now, I don't think there's that big of a gap between Winston to Brady as there is from Goff to Stafford. I don't think that highly of Stafford. I have some position rankings coming out here soon enough, but Stafford I still see as a top 10 quarterback-ish, right around that area, that 10 to 12 mark, but he is not Tom Brady. He's not going to be a top 3 guy, but it is an addition at the most important position in football. So you hope that little bit of an improvement could help get you over the hump into the NFC Championship game, and then you ride the momentum potentially back to the Super Bowl. And then honorable mention to Deshaun Jackson. A lot of people are giving a lot of hype to D-Jax right now, and I'm not one to buy into it because he's always hurt, and I have been burned by it, both in fantasy, but also just like, he is still fun to watch. Like, you watch him in 2019 when he was healthy, the dude still got it. Like, he's got the Jets. And what he does is make defenses respect the deep ball. And also, I'll add, this tandem together, Goff is not throwing that many deep passes. Like, he just doesn't have the arm that Stafford still does. So you have that duo of a guy, Matt Stafford, who still has one of the stronger arms in the NFL, and D-Jax, who still has the Jets. That could be a fun connection between the two. D-Jax also gets an opportunity to mentor Tutu Atwell, that's who the Rams saw. They saw the future D-Jax, so he's got a teaching role into his position with the team. And also, if he stretches the field, think about how good Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp have been without a field stretcher. And then think back to when they had Brandon Cooks. And again, with Jared Goff, they had Brandon Cooks opening up things in the underneath and middle parts of the field. And Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp are already great at getting open, and now you're giving them help. I mean, that's a scary, scary offense, potentially. Obviously, we're dealing with potential here, but this could be a lethal offense without a doubt. Moving on to the Jacksonville Jaguars now. Don't need to talk about this one long. The most important addition is Trevor Lawrence. 1, because you needed to improve at that spot, but 2, because he's been the guy we've pegged as the number 1 pick for 3 years now. So he looks to be a generational type of talent at the position and a future, top 10, if not higher, QB in the making. He has this luck level of, gravitas around him and expectations around him. And 1, he's a fantastic player and he's a great thrower of the football, but he's also a fantastic athlete. Also, Trevor Lawrence is just a fantastic leader. This is a big reason why I like Justin Fields and Lawrence a ton. Is when the NCAA was looking like no college football season, they made their cases and they rallied the troops. Fields got a petition of Big Ten players, and thousands of signatures later, they end up having a Big Ten season. And Trevor Lawrence did a lot of the same for the ACC. And also, Lawrence was very active and outspoken during a lot of the troubled times during the last year and a half, with a lot of different social injustice issues going on around America. And I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to get political, but Trevor Lawrence was outspoken and showed great leadership skills there. So good throw of the football, good athlete, good with his legs, and a great leader. That's a franchise QB in the making. And then the honorable mention, since Lawrence is a QB, Shaquille Griffin. I mean, they had money to spend in this offseason and got maybe the best quarterback available. So it's a position they definitely could improve upon with the guy opposite of CJ Henderson. And then they add Tyson Campbell in the draft, and it sounds like Urban Meyer's thinking about playing him in the nickel. At least that's what it sounded like on the Chris Collinsworth podcast that he was on. So we'll see. Kind of a different role for Campbell, but Shaquille Griffin gives you a really nice boundary corner opposite of CJ Henderson, improves that defense, and this is going to be a very competitive team, largely because of these 2 additions. On to the Miami Dolphins. Cheated a little bit here. 2 names. I could have made one, like the addition and one the honorable mention, but it's the wide receivers, Will Fuller and Jalen Waddle. One, because their speed element, right? Like, you just can't teach speed, and what these guys could do stretching the field is going to be huge, helping Devontae Parker get open, along the sideline, over the middle of the field, because Parker's not, he's like a 50-50 contested ball kind of guy, and he does that down the field. But if these two guys take the top off the defense, that's going to make it for Parker to work in the intermediate parts of the field, where Tua has to get better. He's got to be able to throw the ball 10 to 19 yards. He dominated in college football in that area, so I don't know why his numbers were so ugly in that spot, basing that off of, PFF grades and whatnot. But also what Jalen Waddle can do after the catch, and what Will Fuller has begun to do. Last year, we started to see him make strides as a wide receiver. He wasn't just that guy with a ton of speed who makes big plays. If he continues to polish his route running and become more than just the deep threat, he's going to round out to be a really nice wide receiver, and he's only on a 1-year deal. He could be in for a huge payday, especially with the salary cap obviously going back up by $36 million. It's a huge difference. And then Jalen Waddle, your first-round pick, you're obviously trying to prove that he was worth that value. You took him at number 6 overall, and the pick was in right away. So it felt like to me they wanted Pitts or Chase, but clearly they are A-OK with Jalen Waddle. And I like what he can do after the catch. Played with Tua. You just get Waddle the ball in open space, let him do his thing, and it'll make the game easier for your second-year QB. On to the Minnesota Vikings. This is kind of cheating, I guess, because Christian Darrisaw, I'm also thinking about the trade back that then gets you exactly the players taken with those 2/3 they got from New York. Kellen Mond, free lottery pick, and a backup QB and potential QB of the future, and Wyatt Davis. Starting guard. Darrisaw, though, is who I went with here, largely because it was just the position that they needed to improve the most across the offensive line. Like, they needed to get better on the interior. They needed a guard. Wyatt Davis was a big addition, but you need a left tackle to protect Kirk Cousins. He's not a great athlete that can avoid pressure, not like a Russell Wilson or anything like that. So Darrisaw, obviously a huge upgrade. And no, I know rookie tackles don't always play well right away. Tristan Wirfs was kind of the exception to the rule last year, but that's also at right tackle versus left. He's not facing team's number 1 edge guy. But I think Darrisaw, minimum, plus level run blocker. And when the key to success and the blood of the offense is running the ball with Dalvin Cook, setting up play action with Kirk Cousins, Darrisaw is going to add to that as a good run blocker. And he was a plus level pass blocker in college, has a great athletic build. In a lot of ways, if we had an NFL Combine this year, I think he would have made a Mekhi Becton type of raise up people's boards. He ended up falling a little bit instead, and kind of crazy to me. The Vikings got a steal here, and even if he struggles as a rookie as a pass blocker, he's better than Rashad Hill. I think that's who our lads had as like their penciled in like left tackle. Like, no matter who it was, Darrisaw was going to be better, regardless of whoever he's replacing. Anyways, moving on to the New England Patriots. Obviously, most important addition to Mac Jones. He's your guy of the future. No matter what you think of what Cam Newton versus Jones, who should start this year, Jones is the guy after this year, guaranteed. So, huge addition. And then maybe I could have put Mac Jones in the honorable mention because we don't know if he's going to start or if he's going to see the field. We don't know, where he stands compared to Cam Newton. But the tight ends, I love those additions for either quarterback. And I get the argument that those tight ends help Cam Newton more because you're getting back to where he was as an MVP. Greg Olsen, 1,100 yards that year in Carolina in 2015. But even if it's Mac Jones, think back to, Rob Gronkowski, Aaron Hernandez, and all the success New England had with Tom Brady with those 2 tight ends. They also had some really good options on the outside. If I had to put money down, I'm thinking the Pats get Julio, but I don't know. It sounds like the Titans really making a strong push, as they should. But anyways, the tight ends help make the game easier for either one of those QBs. And I've made this, argument a couple times. Like, to get a top-end wide receiver, you're paying $18 to $20 million. Like, think Kenny Golladay, he's getting $18 a year. To get top-end tight ends, $13.5. And they can help you in the run game with both these guys being plus-level blockers, Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry, which helps Damian Harris, Sony Michel. Hopefully Damian Harris for fantasy perspectives. I think they might move on from Sony Michel, but that's a different argument for a different day. They can help in the run game, and they help over the middle of the field a ton. You may not get the outside production. That's where you might want a Julio Jones, or you need more out of Kendrick Bourne, Nelson Aguilar, those types of guys. But really an interesting argument. Maybe tight ends, if you can get more mismatch type of dudes like a Hunter Henry, like a Jonnu Smith, maybe they're a better value than those top-end wide receivers. I don't know. Still just something I'm thinking about, and it's kind of a thought experiment, and we'll see how it plays out in New England. This will be like the first, test run of this, experiment. Moving on to the New Orleans Saints. re-signing Jameis Winston gives you a floor at the quarterback position, right? Like, you go from Drew Brees, who was declining, but at the minimum, he wasn't turning the football over. He was keeping you in games. He wasn't losing you games. And that's a very valuable asset and commodity when you have that good of a roster. Jameis Winston, I don't know about the turnovers. We'll see. We haven't seen him as a starter since the eye surgery. And I know that's kind of a meme, but like, as somebody who's legally blind without contacts in, I'm telling you, it makes a difference. And I'm not saying Jameis Winston was as blind as I was, given no optical improvements, glasses, contacts, whatever the case may be. It'll help, you hope. Also, working with Sean McVay, maybe Bruce Arians just wasn't the guy to get through to Jameis. And even Bruce Arians had to change his scheme up with Tom Brady. He's had to make some adjustments. So maybe, the old dog is learning new tricks there in Tampa. And maybe this is an opportunity for Jameis Winston working with Sean Payton. Payton can kind of channel something we haven't been able to see any coach get out of Jameis. We'll see. Dirk Cutter couldn't. Bruce Arians couldn't. It's going to be a fun watch no matter what. And keep in mind, I know the 30 interceptions, but 5,000 yards, 30 touchdowns. Winston could get a lot out of Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Adam Troutman's, I think, a tight end one in fantasy. Like, good offensive line. This is going to be at least an interesting team to watch. And then, honorable mention of Paulson Adebo. Looks like he might be a starting outside corner day one. We'll see as the rest of the offseason progresses, but Marshawn Lattimore and then Adebo might be outside corner too. I mean, I know you have PJ Williams there, but we'll see. We'll see how Adebo looks right away. Because again, corner is a tough position to get immediate production from, so time will tell the story. But I like the addition of Adebo, and it's a secondary that needed another body. And Adebo, I think, is a plus level option. I think he fits that Saints defense really well as well. And now for the New York Football Giants, this one has to be Kenny Golladay. Like, I like the addition of Kadarius Toney. You re-sign Leonard Williams, plus level interior pass rusher. Like both those additions. But to me, it's got to be Kenny Golladay, right? You're paying him $18 million, and he is a mistake eraser. He is going to make it easy for Daniel Jones to just say, let me just chuck it up for Kenny and see what happens. And Golladay is going to come down with a lot of those 50-50 balls. And he is just a type of wide receiver this team did not have. No matter what you think of Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard, or even Kadarius Toney now, none of those guys are the same build and type of wide receiver. They don't win the same way Kenny Golladay does. They don't win at the catch point as well as he does. And also, 6'4" frame. He can win over the middle of the field. I think he's continuing to improve. That injury last year was kind of, obviously it was disappointing for Detroit, but disappointing as a fan of his, being myself. As year by year, he continued to get better as an overall wide receiver, and his route running was getting better. His understanding of the position, all of it was improving, as you would expect. And it kind of sucked. The injury kind of derailed that, but hopefully he's able to get back to where he was in 2019. Remember, he led the league in touchdowns. Like, this is a big addition there, and hopefully it's a guy that, if you're a Giants fan, makes the game easier for Daniel Jones and brings a ton of success to the Big Apple. The other New York team, obviously, most important position, Zach Wilson. We don't have to talk about that a lot. They get their franchise QB that they've been looking for a while. And with them, the guy that minimum changes the culture around from what it was with Adam Gase to what I think it'll be under Robert Saleh, but also a fantastic defensive line. So you get a franchise QB, a defensive guru. That's the making of turning the ship around. And they use all their draft assets to put weapons around Zach Wilson, which I think is a fantastic strategy. That's what teams should do. You move up and take Elijah Vera-Tucker, who I know they gave up a good amount of value, but now Becton, Elijah Vera-Tucker on the left side of the offensive line, give me some more of that. That is awesome. They still have some other positions they got to address there, but that left side is stellar. Go out and get Michael Carter in the 4th round. Fantastic value. Great fit if Michael Flores is bringing over that similar, running scheme. We don't know for sure yet, but if it's something similar to what it was in San Francisco, Michael Carter is going to fit perfectly. And then adding Elijah Moore at the top of the 2nd round, you got to be kidding me. I think they were going to eye someone like maybe a Ronnie Perkins. An edge rusher is what I'll leave it at blandly or vaguely. I don't know exactly who was on the board at that point off the top of my head, but when Elijah Moore falls to you with the 2nd pick in the 2nd round, you take him because he's a fantastic value. Obviously, also lets you move on from Jamison Crowder. You could cut him, you could trade him. Options are plentiful in New York, and I love this duo. So easily the most important additions, Zach Wilson and head coach Robert Saleh. For the Las Vegas Raiders, I almost called them Oakland again. I don't know why I still do that, but Yannick Ngakoue, this is a team that needed edge rush. Like, Clelin Ferrell's getting better and improving, but a lot of that progress is coming against the run, and he is improving as a pass rusher too, but more exponentially against the run. And Max Crosby is a good player, but maybe he's already hit his ceiling. Like, he just doesn't have that athletic, God-given ability that you just can't teach guys. I mean, and I could definitely be wrong. Max Crosby could become a double-digit sack guy. He might go for 12 this year in Vegas. Who knows? We're speculating here. But Yannick Ngakoue gives you a guy that is proven 10-plus sack type of talent. And also, I'm happy for him. He gets a 2-year contract. He finally gets a place to stay for more than just half a season or even less than that, and some spots along the way. So, love the addition for Yannick Ngakoue. And $13 million a year for a guy who could be your most impactful edge rusher, it's not a bad value. And again, he's still young, getting better. Love that addition there for Vegas. On to the Philadelphia Eagles. This one has to be Devonta Smith. Has to be, in my opinion. Anthony Harris, a good addition. They got him for cheap, but wrong side of 30, a safety, not exactly as high a valuable position as wide receiver. And I've said it once, I'll say it again. You're trying to make the game easier for your quarterback. And now this is a year. This is your litmus test for Jalen Hurts. You need to see what he is as a potential QB of the future. And Devonta Smith gives you a guy minimal, great hands, fantastic separator. Forget about his frame. Throw all that out the window. He gets open. And when he's open, he catches the football. Even when he's not open, he catches the football. And he's pretty darn good after the catch. He may not be Waddle, but he ain't far off. So it's all about simplifying the game for Hurts and giving him a plus level weapon right away. And it makes the game and the role easier for Jalen Reagor, who, this team has struggled drafting wide receiver, and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside is probably outside that picture. I don't know if he really gets a substantial role under Nick Sirianni. But Reagor, a second-year guy, you can count on it. Field stretching slot guy, I think that's a perfect role for him. And then that other outside wide receiver, I think Travis Fulgham is not as bad. And then Greg Ward, I know there's a lot of jokes that Greg Ward, LOL, he's starting for you. And that shows how tough it was last year. But it's totally different when you look at Greg Ward as wide receiver 1/2 versus 4 or 5. It depends on the role you're putting him in. And if he's wide receiver 4, I'm okay with that. That's not bad. That's not the end of the world. I think Travis Fulgham could be wide receiver 3, the other outside guy, with Devonta Smith leading the way, Jalen Reagor bouncing back, having a good second year, and all this coming together. Obviously, the big factor of it is how much better of a passer of the football is Jalen Hurts. And again, that's something we have to wait and see on. For the San Francisco 49ers, QB Trey Lance. This is the guy of the future. If you didn't, I'm kind of referencing this podcast twice now, not kind of, but I am. The Chris Collinsworth podcast, he had on John Lynch the other day, and GM John Lynch was talking about they're coming back from Justin Fields' Pro Day. Great story. You should go check out the pod. You should listen to a lot of PFF stuff. At the minimum, it's a different way to think about the game, in my opinion. May not agree with everything they say, but it's a different way of looking at it. Anyways, go check out that pod with John Lynch and talk about how he saw Trey Lance and how Kyle Shanahan thinks of Trey Lance. It's really remarkable, and it makes it no surprise that he went number 3. And this is the guy of the future. Don't know if we'll see him this year, or if we do, when that'll be, because Jimmy Garoppolo is still a solid starter, and maybe the mechanics for Lance take more time to be cleaned and polished than just the offseason leading up to the season. Maybe it takes a full year to clean up what Lance's throwing motion looks like. And then, honorable mention, re-signing Trent Williams. And this goes hand in hand. You have Trey Lance, QB of the future, and you solidified his blindside protector. That is obviously huge for this team. Sorry if you hear any sirens. There's apparently an ambulance going by. So I apologize for any distraction you might hear. Hopefully you're not. But Trent Williams, blindside protector for your QB of the future. Obviously your most important, and your honorable mention for most important additions of the offseason. Seattle Seahawks are kind of tough. They've been rumored to be in on Julio Jones. Haven't got that notification yet. So actually I just got one. Mike Krzyzewski is going to plan on retiring. That is very interesting. But that's not what we're talking about today. Re-signing Carlos Dunlap, I think, gives you a floor. Kind of like what we talked about with Jameis Winston with the Saints in a different way. Gives you a floor for at least some pass rush production. They're moving Darrell Taylor to that off-ball linebacking position. I think he can help blitz from that spot. LJ Collier, we'll see. Still hasn't put anything together quite yet. Carlos Dunlap at least gives you the production. I don't know if he's going to be quite as good as he was once he got in Seattle. That felt like a huge step forward from where he was in Cincy. But somewhere there in between is good. He's okay. And maybe this team goes out and maybe there's somebody who brings in Justin Houston, or maybe even a Vic Beasley. Somebody like that. Another body to potentially produce. And not a lot of great options. You could go Dwayne Eskridge, but he's the third fiddle behind DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. So, that's cool. Gabe Jackson, an aging and slowly but surely regressing guard, helps Chris Carson. Re-signing Chris Carson could have put here. I like Dunlap the most. On to the Pittsburgh Steelers, the first and only offensive coordinator. I was surprised I only had one OC on here, but I made this argument in videos past, so sorry if you're hearing it again and you don't want to hear it once more, but this is a team that lost a lot in the offseason, so it was already kind of tough to find who the most important addition was. Could have put Najee Harris, thought about Kendrick Green. Really, Kendrick Green would have been the person because Marquise Pouncey, I'm telling you, I love Marquise, but he was just not good. He was the third worst rated center in PFF grades, and just eyeball test. I watch every game of the Steelers, obviously. He does not get that same push up the middle. Kendrick Green, I think, helps, at least in the running game there. We'll see about him as a pass blocker. But Matt Canada is a very different type of play caller compared to what Randy Fichtner was. And Randy Fichtner was a big part of that quick passing game that was great the first 12 weeks of the season when the Steelers were 11-0. But at the tail end, when defense figured it out, Fichtner could not adjust. And, I go and I point this game out all the time. The second half against the Indianapolis Colts, that was Ben Roethlisberger calling the plays. And the offense all of a sudden came to life. And it was because there was an adjustment made. Go figure, it had brought about positive results. Mind-boggling. And I think Matt Canada, also, I'll argue, the change in schemes. Like, look at when Kyle Shanahan left Atlanta and how non-existent the running game was after he left. So I'm not saying Matt Canada's going to be a Matt or Kyle Shanahan type of improvement to our run game, but the scheme plays a factor in that. But also the addition of Kendrick Green and another year of Kevin Dotson, I think it will help, well, at least on the interior. We'll see about the tackle spots. I think Zach Banner's a good run blocker. But again, let me get back to Matt Canada. Changing the scheme, I think, could go a long way. And also, Matt Canada's a guy who loves end-arounds, jet sweeps, stretching the field horizontally, not just vertically. And you see guys like Sean McVay and Andy Reid, Matt Nagy, all these, Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl with similar types of concepts. And it's becoming more and more important in the game of football, having guys like, for the Steelers' sake, Deontay Johnson come around on an end-around, and defenses have to take that into account. And they have to, one, analyze, is he getting the football here, or is this a fake? Keeping defenses, specifically linebackers, on their toes. But also the Steelers were last in the NFL in play action, which has proven to be among the most beneficial play types in the NFL. And they were last, and the next closest team ran it more than twice as much. I think it was 13% play action last year. And that's on Ben. Ben said he did not want to do play action, didn't want to go under center. And I get that. You can do shotgun play action, so I don't really get that fully. But this team needs to add those end arounds, those jet sweeps, make defenses defend the game or defend the offense horizontally. They need to add play action. I think Matt Canada will do that in his system. And if you do that, you're automatically boosting up an offense that has a lot of people worried, and rightfully so. I'm worried. I'm a fan of the team. Of course I'm worried. So I think Matt Canada could prove to be the most important offseason move for the Steelers. And if he can have that offense efficient, that defense is going to be top 6, top 10 neighborhood, likely going to lead the league in sacks again, or at least be near the top of the league in that category. This is a team that could make a playoff push if Matt Canada has the offense looking right. Off my soapbox, onto the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is an easy one. They kept everybody. What's the most important offseason move? They kept everybody. Players and staff. I had to make that designation. Todd Bowles did not get a head coaching job, which he had some interviews. Philly had him at the end of the coaching carousel after they moved on from Doug Peterson. And they decided to go in a different direction with Nick Sirianni. So the Bucs not only are getting all their players back, but they didn't lose offensive coordinator Brian Leftwich. They didn't lose DC Todd Bowles, who was a huge part of the team's success, especially in that playoff run. I mean, he had his defense playing at an elite level, and was a lot of talent, but Bowles definitely a part in it. And obviously Bruce Arians is back as the head coach, so that is always good. So the Bucs just kept everybody. That is unheard of, honestly, especially for a Super Bowl winning team. That is not something you hear often. And for the Tennessee Titans, I give it to edge rusher Bud Dupree. If they get Julio Jones, go ahead and change this out for Julio, make Bud Dupree the honorable mention. But Bud Dupree gives you a nice edge rushing complement, opposite of Harold Landry, who I think has shown flashes. Need to see it more consistently. I want the Titans to use their outside linebackers more consistently to rush the passer, so we'll see. That comes down to a scheme-dependent variable that we just don't know yet. But Dupree and Harold Landry, on paper, create a really nice tandem rushing the passer. And that's an area Tennessee was just horrid last year. Off of play action, again, talking about play action, against the Tennessee Titans, QB rating above 130. Everybody basically looked like Pat Mahomes against the Titans when they were running play action. and it's because they just couldn't create any pressure. So Dupree helps in that element big time. And last but not least, the Washington football team. Curtis Samuel, I could have gone William Jackson. I honestly could have gone De'Ami Brown. Like the addition of Sam Cosmi as well as Jamin Davis. I'm a big Jamin Davis guy, and I think he fits really well with that defense. So maybe you make Davis the honorable mention, but this is one of those wide receiver cores, kind of like where New Orleans is now, where it's like there's a dude right there. Like for Washington, it's Terry McLaurin, and New Orleans is Michael Thomas, and then after that, it's pedestrian. But that changed this offseason, one with the drafting of De'Ami Brown, but also the addition of Curtis Samuel, who is familiar with the, it's Scott Turner in Washington, but familiar with the Turner family, and he gives you something you don't have right now. Again, talking about those end arounds, jet sweeps, that was a big part of his offensive production in Carolina. He also lined him up in the backfield. I'd love to see a 2 running back backfield with Curtis Samuel and Antonio Gibson, 2 wide receivers essentially. Antonio Gibson played wide receiver in college. I mean, that would be lethal, and that's the direction the NFL is heading in a lot of ways. So love the addition for Curtis Samuel. They got him at a good value, help take the pressure off the shoulders of Terry McLaurin, and make the game easier for Ryan Fitzpatrick. We've been saying it for a lot of young QBs, but Ryan Fitzpatrick far from young QB standards-wise. But Samuel helps give another weapon for Fitzmagic. But that's going to do it for my most important offseason move for each and every team. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section. Tell me your favorite team and what addition you're most excited about. Player, coach, coordinator, anything you can think of. But hopefully you all enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit that like button. It would help me out a ton. And if you like today's video, want more sports content like this in your life, please consider hitting that subscribe button. But that's all I got for you. And until next time, my name is Tej, signing off.
I'm part of the last generation that remembers time of God.